Imagine for a moment a world without art, without dance, opera, literature, poetry. That world would be a very, very dull place.
Today on the show, we have Chicago hip-hop artist and rapper Iowa Rockwell. As a founding member of the innovative Chicago-based hip-hop group, the Third Eyelanders, he had released 2 albums with them, and then he began work on his solo career. His first official release, the Wonder Years mixtape, was released June of 2009, with the same year accumulating the release of his first solo album, Changing of the Guards. Over a decade, Iowa Rockwell would release multiple projects with a wide range of themes and sincerity. After a 6-year hiatus without an official release, he dropped the album 81 in 2017, which was an extremely personal look at his life through his own lens. Iowa Rockwell has joined forces with collaborator Topher Grey on the Stupid Box Project, a weekly podcast that deals with the minds of common society. In January of 2020, he released B-Sides album with producer Smoke Bonito, and his most recent release of an instrumental album called The Quarantine, as well as being featured in an album Stay Safe with Nether Friends, an album inspired by social isolation and finding inspiration in an environment of fear. Iowa, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Jimmy, man, thank you for having me on. I appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. And, you're one of those guys I've been trying to talk to for a minute because I know my buddy Slump. He is who I go to for good underground hip hop. Like he's always sending me, random links, stuff he finds,
Yeah,
and like he's one of those guys that goes out and puts forth the effort to actually find new, interesting music. So when I asked him, who would you want to talk to on a podcast that's local, coming up, and that just really has a good I don't want to say pure Chicago sound, but a real distinctly Chicago sound, and he pointed to you.
yeah, word, man, word. Slump's a good dude, man. He. If I know who you're talking about correctly, man, he's definitely been in the lab. I met him through Smoke Bonito, actually, who we did the last EP with.
Okay, so how did you get in touch with Smoke? Did you guys collaborate for a while, or is this more of a recent development?
Actually, about a year, maybe a little over a year ago or so, I went to link up with my buddy Fresh Ideas, Edwin, and he worked out of a studio over in the River North area. So I went to go check out him, and Smoke at video happened to be there. So we vibed. Instantly, we're like, oh, cool people, work with everybody. Long story short, my buddy who had the studio actually moved to Oklahoma, leaving it vacant. So Smoke and I, we just became cool, had a good rapport. We kind of joined in and ran the studio from there on out. So we've been working out of the studio together for the last year. So it's been a healthy partnership.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I love
Yeah.
I just love when like new people can meet, vibe, and instantly find something, some common idea that they can kind of work around. So let me ask you, just kind of going off of that, was there any certain specific themes you wanted to do with B sides, or did you guys have any particular message that you wanted to focus on?
With the B sides, it was more let's keep it pure hip hop was the sound we were going for at least. I wouldn't say there was a message we wanted to convey. We named it the B sides because we work out of Studio B,
Hmm.
where we're at. There's 2 studios, A and B, and our studio is Studio B. So it was kind of play off the studio name, and then to play off obviously the B sides and what that means to vinyls and whatnot.
Right, right.
But going off that, it was like the B side sounds like something that's pure. Sounds like something that if you're gonna make it, it's just sound hip hop. So we kind of had that spin to the actual music behind it.
Well, that and also, just the association with vinyl just automatically
Right.
gives you that old school vibe that, this album really is an
Exactly.
expression of. I mean, the one thing I loved about this album, because I sat and listened to it this morning kind of in preparation for the talk, was that you can hear so many different artists echoed through it. Like you can
Yeah.
definitely see that influence by Common, Crucial Conflict, like a lot of these Chicago-based hip hop groups that kind of maybe, I don't know, just kind of developed the music scene in Chicago.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, heavily Chicago inspired. Chicago has so many great artists, and I've been doing this in Chicago for so long, that I've seen so many artists rise and fall. And unfortunately, like we early on, a lot of Chicago artists had to leave Chicago to really make a name for themselves. And within the last like 12 years, like people gravitate towards Chicago artists as opposed to us having to leave and go somewhere else to claim our name. They're looking at
Right.
us for inspiration and us for style and innovation and things. So it's kind of a change in that sense.
Well, yeah, because I mean, maybe if you're just looking, at the history of hip hop and how it developed, Chicago's always been kind of like, the forgotten red-haired stepchild. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
always
yeah.
looked over.
House music took over the wave of Chicago and ran with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, just the whole, East versus West thing in the early days, like
hmm
it really overshadowed a lot of the good artists that were coming out of Chicago at the time.
Yeah, it took because I think part of it was because no one claimed the Midwest, right? At that time, no one was claiming the Midwest. People were claiming the East Coast, people were claiming the West Coast, people were claiming down south, but that was where it stopped. People claimed Chicago, people claimed certain cities, but no one claimed like the Midwest as a region. So therefore, like things just got overlooked in the Midwest unless you were a standout. Because it was
Right.
like, oh, where do you fall? No one's claiming your region, so where do you fall?
Yeah, and it's well, I mean, I don't know, like there's just been so many like, um, just good overlooked artists that have come out of Chicago. And, I mean, unfortunately, it seems that I feel like a lot of that is just Kanye, for the most part, sucking up a lot of the light and blinding out a lot of other folks just because he got so big so fast. But I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
of good talent that comes out of Chicago.
Yeah, there really is, man. There's a gang of talent. I mean, you hit up some of these open mics, some of these just local performances, local shows, local artist workshops, and you'll be surprised at the talent you find. But the great thing about it now is like people have a way of getting their voice heard, their
Yeah,
music heard, regardless of how big they are, how much money's in their pocket. Like there's ways, as long as you get internet access, you could put your music out there for the world to hear for pretty much almost close to nothing. Um, so it's definitely a change in tides. Before where we were trying to fight to stand out, I feel like now it's just like, yo, I'm just gonna be me, and if you find a way, and if you hear me and you feel me, that's dope.
yeah. Well, I mean, and that's like the most sincere way to approach it as well. Is
Yeah,
you're not trying to play a character like some of these guys are. You're
right,
trying
right.
to be real and you're trying to be authentic.
I'll tell you what, man, it helps with longevity because you don't ever have to like keep up with this persona. You're gonna be
Yeah,
yourself forever.
yeah,
So if yourself from
absolutely.
the start and the mid, like you ain't changing. You're yourself, no matter what your sound is, and that's just artistry. You're gonna change in that sense. But as long as you're true to yourself the whole way, like fool, you'll never just burn out of gas, run out of gas trying to keep up with this persona you made.
And I feel like I don't know. I feel like Chicago, it has a lot of authentic rappers as well. Because I mean, I don't. I feel like Chicago in particular is where a lot of the more positive based hip hop and rap are coming from these days. I mean, with such a focus on like mush mouth rappers and beats and this and that. I mean. Really, if you look at a lot of the stuff coming out of Chicago, it's just so uplifting and inspirational a lot of the times, even though it can portray a lot of, deep seated resentment, pain of cultural issues.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think Chicago's in a transition, just like everywhere, but Chicago's transition through like you said, like the common, the gangster era where we had our crucial conflicts, our do or dies, our twisters,
Right.
and then we shifted towards our commons, and then Kanye's, and then we went through our straight drill period where Chicago was known for nothing but drill music. And then now you got your Sabas and your No Names and your Smino, and people are coming out with like, oh, your Mick Jenkins, and they're rapping and they're using lyrics, they're using words to put put real ideas together as opposed to just putting sounds together to make it sound good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for every Chief Keef out there, you have a Chance the Rapper and MC Juice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, man. Like
So,
got a good buddy of mine who's out in LA now, who's a
mhm.
Chicago bred artist. Uh, he's one of my favorites, open mic, and he uses that artistry in in his lyrics and in his words, and it's like there's like the way I feel is just space and time for all types of music. You
Yeah.
want to just turn up and bounce. There's a place for that. There's music that should be made for that. Uh, but I like having a diverse catalog where you can get a little bit of everything from it.
Well, and you know what? That's the one thing I will say about rap. I mean, maybe next to electronic music, it has the most subgenres and different styles within it than any other
For
genre of
sure.
music.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much you could do with it, and 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 it's almost like since we created it, there's no limit to it. So that's why I'm not one of the old heads who listen to people now and immediately shut it down. I'll just say that's not for me. That's for
Yeah.
somebody, but it ain't for me. And it got no problem saying something's whack, something's hot. Like, yo, this sounds dope. I probably won't listen to it too often, but it sounds dope. So whoever likes this, they're gonna love it. So like you said, there's a lot of different subgenres in rap that basically will appeal to almost everyone.
So then, I guess let me ask you, what were the first? I guess what were some of the first rappers or artists that really inspired you to want to take up the craft?
Oh man, rappers back in the day, Common was huge. When Common dropped, I mean the Can I Borrow $1 album came out, and that was like low key hip hop, and people still weren't. The buzz was there. Um, but then when he dropped Resurrection, that was. I remember my sister. I got an older sister, and she bought that CD along with a couple others that I vividly remember. But that was one. When I heard the Resurrection album, and I was hearing Watermelon, and like shit was just blowing my mind. And I was like, oh, this is cool ass music. Like why have I been listening to the radio? Where's
Yeah.
this at?
Yeah, Resurrection. I mean, that's one of those albums that I had to go back and
Yeah.
discover because I mean I didn't get into Common until I want to say the first album I listened to him was Finding Forever,
Okay. Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and like after I listened to that, I just had to go and backtrack and listen to pretty much everything. And the one thing that I will say is that he is one of the most consistent rappers
Hmm.
just message wise as well as quality of music.
Yeah.
Like
Album to album.
yeah,
Overall.
he's never put out a bad album, and every album that he does do is very well thought out, is very well thematically structured, and it's very well paced.
Yeah. And like for Common specifically, like he's never really musically. I wouldn't say he's ever failed the test. He whatever grade you give him, you really can't give him a failing grade. You might give him a D at the lowest if you don't like this or that, but it's like, oh, but it's still passed the test. If that makes sense.
Right,
He,
right. So I guess, well, I don't know. I guess let me ask you, just because as an artist, you go through, just like different cycles of music. Were there any different like subgenres that had your attention at certain times that you just really felt a specific vibe with, or have you tried to keep a consistent sound throughout your albums?
I think early on, it was a very, very hip hop sound. Well, when I was with the Third Islanders, a group, it was about seven of us. Um, we performed with a live band, and my cousin made all the beats, and then we ended up just performing with live band strictly. So that was like early on to let me see like this is what the beat is, but this is what the band is playing,
Yeah,
and understand like, oh, this is music, and they're both music, but they've taken this beat and made it into a completely different song that we can do something over. And it was like we had a Brazilian bass player, a Brazilian pianist, an
hmm,
Argentinian bass player. So they put us onto some of their music as well.
oh yeah,
Yeah, so like, and ever since a shorty, like I've always loved the oldies. Always loved the oldies growing up. I used to listen to like 104.3 before I would go to sleep, on low
yeah,
with
yeah.
Dick Biondi, and like that was my jam. You know what I mean? Like I would listen to that stuff for hours. So just having that all in me. My pops would always play Motown. I would have the Motown records and the Motown CDs at home. So like all of that later on inspired what I didn't even know was in me when it was like come time to me to step in front of a mic or like start making beats. It was like, oh man, I'm starting to remember all these songs and sounds that I liked and trying to put it together now.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. There's just something about Motown though that, like, when you listen to it,
Beautiful, man.
it
Beautiful
just
music.
it just hits you right to your soul, just like right to your core,
Yeah.
all the way out. And I don't know, like it's just like almost like it's a very reassuring sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of like the music that we grow up with. Like when we're, whatever music we're exposed to a lot when we're young, it just has
Right.
a particular way of like bringing us back to that nostalgia of the past.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like that's just, it's the whole nature versus nurture
Hmm.
argument. And in this point, I mean, obviously you grow around, you grow up with a certain amount of music. So the best thing is you're either going to really like that, or you're going to be like the complete opposite. Like, I don't like the music I'm around. So when I grow up and make my own decisions, I'm going to listen to something completely different. Because I'm sure there's kids out here who parents like rap, and the kids like, I got a nephew who's like, I don't really don't like rap.
Yeah.
It's like cool, and you build your own sound as you. It's the best thing with music. You're building your sound as you're building yourself through life, and it's constantly changing.
Well, I mean, like even from like a sociological perspective, the next sound is always going to be in a way a rebellion of the sound that came before. I mean, you look at the music that was popular in like the 50s, like rock and roll
Yeah.
was a complete rejection of that entire mindset. And a lot of the ways, rap was a complete rejection of, the mindset of rock and roll, or,
Hmm.
kind of that baby boomer perspective. So like every generation, it kind of like finds its voice through those specific genres that emerge.
Yeah, and it's funny. You look back at the rock and roll that they were so appalled at back in the 50s and 60s, and we laugh at it now how soft and
Oh
funny it
yeah,
is, right?
yeah.
It's just cupcake songs and stuff, and it's like, oh, this is what you were so appalled and like, get off the radio. This is bad. Like, oh, okay. The times just have to keep evolving.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just to think that at one point in time, Chuck Berry was considered a radical figure. It
Yeah,
just blows your mind. Um,
yeah.
but I mean, I mean that's always just the way society reacts to things. It's
Yeah.
always I always feel like society's playing catch up with the arts.
Oh, 100%. 100% music, arts. I mean, because these are people who are forward thinking, who are willing to kind of take some risk and go out on a limb and expose themselves. And
Right.
society as a whole isn't ready to do that. So you got all these individuals who are ready to do that for themselves, and they're pushing this culture and this, thinking, like you said, forward thinking. And then everyone's like, oh, let's follow suit once it becomes kind of acceptable. So,
Right. Well, well, I guess also that kind of that's kind of represented in like the cycles of music as well. Like for instance, every genre of music, like when it cycles through, it finds its voice, it loses it, and then different aspects of that are just incorporated into other genres. You look at rock and
yeah.
roll, in the '60s when it was a budding electric blues movement, like it really had a lot going on with the counterculture and progressing society, but you just follow that genre to its death in the late
Hmm.
'80s. I mean, the guys are just playing clowns of what a rock and roller should be, and in a lot
Right.
a lot of ways, I feel that relates to rap too. Is that at the end of that genre, a lot of the modern rappers we're seeing today, even though some of the stuff they're putting out is great, but the guys who are just trying to go viral, it's if they're trying to play a role of what they think a rapper should be, and it's like it's almost like a shadow of what it once was.
Yeah, I feel like it's partially. I mean, that niche that's always been there. You can go down the line probably until rap was formed, and there's always been that group. It's just expanded now. But
Right,
also,
right.
I think now more than ever in our time, people are just not caring who accepts them or who doesn't. Right? It's just like I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna do what I want to do, like it or not. And I think before there was a lot of guys who would have liked to do what's being done now. It just wasn't acceptable. You would have got laughed out the cipher. You would have got and you just couldn't do it.
So,
So
so it's almost like the traditional guardrails of what that genre once were have just kind of become more laissez-faire and allowed artists nowadays to have more freedom in what they want to do with the genre.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And just the way that we're now able to put out music played a big part in that. Because you don't have to wait to get approval from anyone to put out your music or
Yeah.
put out your sound. Even it's not like an A&R has to approve it, and you have to wait to get money from this or get signed. No one has to say anything to you. You upload to whatever streaming site, and you're out there. That's it. That's all you got to do. So it's giving people more freedom for good and bad. Not everything's good out there. Not every experimental thing's good, but it is giving more freedom to artists to kind of do whatever they feel they need to artistically at the time.
And I don't know. That's why I feel like that's why I feel like I'm privileged to live in the time I do, because at no other point in history have we been so interconnected, and at no other point in history have you had the opportunity to express yourself on pretty much a world scale. Like whatever you put out there, it has the potential for anybody in the world to stumble across it, and that's a very
That's
powerful
crazy,
thing.
right? Yeah, that's crazy, man. That still freaks me out. I'm not even gonna lie, because I look at like numbers online, streaming numbers and whatnot, and it'll just be random little cities, and I'm like, who's listening to me in Jordan? Like two plays in Switzerland. What the fuck is going on? Like, and it's random songs I released 10 years ago, songs
Yeah.
I released a month ago. It's like, man, there's people will find, and that's the beauty of it. That's the thing. People will find you everywhere. Just put out your art. People are gonna find it whenever they do. It might not be on your timeline, but if it's out there, it's on the timeline, and people are gonna run
Yeah.
into it.
Oh, absolutely. And the beauty of it is, I mean, as long as these certain websites are going to be around, like a brand like Coca-Cola, like
Right.
you could have people finding your music 20, 30, 40 years down the road, and they
Yeah.
can, and they can still resonate with it. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're privileged in that way, because no matter what we do, we're leaving a record behind of what we felt and what we experienced.
100%. It feels good because a lot of people just, you know, born, live, die, and that's it. And maybe you get a story to about it, maybe nothing. Who knows? That this way, it's kind of like you're taking your legacy into your own hands,
Yeah.
because you're like, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know what they're gonna publish. I don't know who's gonna do what after I die. But while I'm alive, I'm gonna make sure this is all out there, and boom, the world can hear it now, and it's gonna get passed on. It's gonna get downloaded, and that album might sit in the drawer for 30 years, and it's gonna be there forever. So it's one of those, and you touched on it earlier. Like, it's one of my favorite things I've known is when I stumble across a new artist who's
Hmm.
new to me, and then I realize like, oh, you got like a 6 album back catalog. Oh, now I got to dive in and check what you're all about, because I just heard the new song you did and I was digging it.
Oh
Let me
yeah.
dive into your whole back history. So that's always fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and I mean, particularly when you stumble across that gold that, like, the person who's putting it out, they're not really trying to make it big, right? They're
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
trying. They're just trying to be as authentic as possible with what they think needs to be said.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That's usually right when you stumble across artists like that. It's because they don't have this big marketing team and they're not promoting. They're just like, yeah, I'm just doing music because it's what I do, and I'm gonna do it anyway. So here, I'm gonna put it up here for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like so many people go through their lives, just going through their usual 9 to 5 job, and just never getting the opportunity to express themselves or to find, a sense of purpose in that. And I mean, we just have the ability to do that now.
Yeah, it's a whole new ballgame the way music is consumed, and that's why I always tell people, man, if anyone ever says like, oh, there's no good rap out there right now. It's like, man, how long did you search for good rap? Did you turn on the radio and hoping to hear some? Did you
Yeah,
know what
don't
I'm
do
saying?
that.
Like, did you dig into a couple playlists? Like, what's your definition of there's no good rap? Because I can find you 10 good rappers right now that I don't even know. Just give me a day and I'll find 10 new artists in general. They're cool.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the one reason I love the way music is kind of distributed by streaming services now is that overall the bigger artists kind of get shafted as far as payment and stuff goes, which I can understand, but the algorithms on like Spotify or Pandora,
Hmm.
like they are geared to find particularly what you want to listen to, so it
Yeah,
will find you that those new artists, and it will find you new fresh music to listen to.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I've stumbled across many a new artist that way, and it's you're like just like that. You scroll through, you're like, oh, what's this song? Let me listen to a couple more, and it's like, oh, all right, follow and save this song, and you know, you, so it's a lot easier to put music out and to be heard, but at the exact same time, it's a lot harder because everyone's able to do it.
Right, right.
Whereas before, it was like a certain amount of people that were really out there, so you knew the odds. Now it's me against the world because I feel like everyone in the world is putting out some kind of music or some kind of art out there that's competing against mine.
And well, and you know what I just think the answer to that is that it just inspires more cooperation. Like smaller artists have to collaborate on projects, they have to work together because I mean, I don't know, I'm of the mind that, a rising sea lifts all ships. So the more we
Yeah,
work and the more we collaborate on a more unified vision, whatever that project might be. It builds connections between fan bases, builds connections between artists, and I don't know, it's just very beneficial.
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That's happening. Chicago's like one of the most segregated cities in America,
Oh
and
yeah,
and you still see that. I mean, you're from outside the city. Like you can look at the grid and then look 50 years back and see exactly how they segregated the city. It's not even hidden. And I feel like that has infiltrated its way throughout everyone in Chicago. That's why people feel they have to leave. That's why people like stick with groups they work with. So, and that's why it was special for me to walk into that studio, meet a couple people that I never knew before, and a year later, I'm like, yo, these are my homies. You know what I'm saying? These are people I'm making music with daily now. And it was that synergy that was immediate. And it's rare to find that because everyone wants to protect their own or protect their own group and like not let too many people in.
yeah, and well, I mean, and I think that's like one of the biggest misconceptions about Chicago as well is that primarily, folks who have never been to the city before, if you're not from Chicago, they project the image of it to be this big shining, liberal beacon, but it really isn't. Like there is
Yeah.
some very very deep systemic issues in the way Chicago operates and the way different organizations connected to the government operate.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, it's, people around here can see it clear as day, and then that starts trickling down, and it just becomes who you are as a Chicagoan. So, like, I feel like I'm always cognizant of breaking that mold in my own head
Yeah.
and not allowing that segregation to follow with me everywhere. Because this is easy to do. It's just, oh, where you at? Where you located? Oh, I don't want to drive there. I don't want to drive past this street, or I don't want to go here. And it's you start segregating things, and you stay in your own little neighborhood, your own community. It's like, no, people got to really get out and explore.
Oh yeah. Well, and you look at so many of the neighborhoods on the south side in Chicago, they're just so isolated. Like people are
Yeah,
isolated out there. There's no they you I mean, one, there are a lot of public transportation that goes out that way. You're not going to utilize it because of how many incidences that are usually on it, and it's not like you can get an Uber to drive out there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the grid it's real easy to follow, but it keeps things separated relatively easy too. It's crazy.
So let me ask you: was there any, was there any particular songs or albums you did that you wanted to voice any concerns about living in Chicago, or just the experiences that you had with that segregation?
As far as songs go, I've definitely incorporated into my music. I've got songs. So as far as my music goes, I tend to lean towards reality more than anything else, and even more specifically, my reality.
Right.
What I see, what I've gone through, and there's space and rap for everything, and that's what I do. Some people just glamorize life and glamorize this, and that's fine too. But my style is like, let me rap about what I know, what I've been through, what I see my friends go through, my family go through, what I see happening around me. So like walking on the wild side, the first track, um, off the B sides. It's basically what you just asked me. It's it's basically saying walking on the wild side, west side to the south side, letting you know like all these different sides have all these different issues going on, and just look deeper into it. So that track is definitely one. I've got tracks that I rapped about when I got pulled over by the cops, gun to the window, like yeah. But it's also therapy for me, right? So I'm not going
Yeah.
to a shrink and talking, but I'm rapping. And if I wasn't rapping, I might need to go to a shrink and talk because everyone needs to get it out somehow. This is how I get it out, luckily.
Well, and you know what? That's like the most organic way to do it because, I mean, psychologically, what you're doing at that point is a form of free association, right? You're just letting
Yes,
it flow out of you. And, a lot of times when your subconscious takes over, you get more emotionally impacting expressions.
yeah. I guess I think the hardest part about it was like just opening up to the sense where the vulnerability because no one wants to be vulnerable, and we grew up in an era where you can't be a vulnerable rapper. That just it's not the successful recipe, right?
All right.
Your Jay Z's, you just can't be a vulnerable rapper. So now everyone's coming to where space was. I want to be real, and I just want to speak my own truth, whether you like it or not, or whether that does. It's for me. I'm doing it for me, and if you like it, cool. But it's helping me mentally. That's why I'm doing this. It's kind of why me and my buddy do the podcast. We always talk like this is cool and people like it, but man, we do it for for each other. He does it for himself, and I do it for myself
Yeah.
as a form of a mental therapy. Like, yo, let's sit down and talk about something real for an hour. People don't have conversations anymore. Let's do this, and it's helping us relieve anxiety and all these other feelings. That some people keep bottled up because they don't have that outlet.
Well, I mean, that and I know there's a power to vulnerability. Like, if you're willing to
There
be
is.
vulnerable with someone, one, you're going to hit them at an empathetic core. Like, if you
There,
show vulnerability to someone and they empathize with you, like,
uh,
you're creating a stronger emotional connection.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, there's a yeah, like you said, empathetic is definitely when you hit somebody and they feel exactly what you're saying, and then there's a different trust level, even with someone you don't even know. There's a different trust level that's built when they feel your vulnerability and they feel that you're coming from a very real place. It's like, oh, he's not lying to me in his raps. Why would he lie to me otherwise? Or like he's not. I can feel exactly what he's saying and it's truthful. So now it just becomes a trustworthy partnership. And
Yeah.
fan to artist, friend to friend, that just builds trust. If you tell someone, that's why people always say, "Oh, tell me your deepest secret." It's like, yeah, show me how vulnerable you are. That's what I want. That's D was like, that's what we want. I want to see your vulnerability because I know the real you. We're
Yeah.
all hiding our skeletons. Like that's the real you.
Well, and I feel like that just like gives you like I know when you're vulnerable with someone, it allows you a chance to express yourself on a level of sincerity that just strikes at
Hmm.
someone's emotional core. A good representation is. I guess Mac Miller, right?
Yeah.
Mac Miller is a very vulnerable rapper, and when you look at his work and you look at just how somber a lot of it is, uh, it allows you to kind of humanize him and
Yeah.
put yourself in his shoes. And when you're putting on a front, you don't have that. You don't have somebody who could actually see where you're coming from. And
Right.
I don't know.
It it lets you control. I mean, it puts the control back in your own hands of you. You know what I mean? Like if I rap about for an example, if I'm rapping about me crying, and no one could come up to me and laugh like, "Ha ha, you cried." Like, where'd you hear that from me? Yeah, I know. I told you that.
Yeah.
Like you can't poke fun at something. I'm telling you this. You know what I'm saying? So it's nothing that's hidden. Like, yo, I'm out here. I'm telling you this. So just take it and run with it. That's it. You can't throw it back at me. I'm the one who chose to give it to you.
Yeah, you can't criticize realness.
Yeah. You just have to accept it for what it is. Like it or not, move on or keep listening or whatever the case may be. But yeah, if you sense that somebody's real, even if you don't like it, and I do it all the time, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't sound like this dude's lying about it. I just don't. I'm not feeling it, but I respect the craft. I respect the authenticity he's coming with.
So I mean, so let me ask you then: do you think being real? I mean, do you think that allows you to have a little bit more self-reflection or opportunity for self-reflection?
Yeah, I think so because if you're if you're very if you're real in your writing, real in your lyrics, it leads to direct self reflection because then you put the music out and you're listening to it, right? And that's clearly that's the most self reflective stuff. Like you're listening to yourself say these things, like, oh, okay, that's self reflection every time you hear that song. So, so yeah, and on the other side could be it could be self projection.
Yeah.
Sometimes we all want to, I'll get into my like I want to live in a fantasy world and I want to get creative and imaginative with my words. So now I'm going to talk about this or put myself in this context. Um, and now you're self-projecting. So when I listen to it, I'm like, "Ooh, that would be cool. Or that is where I want to go. That is where I want to take it." So it's definitely a balance of both.
Yeah, and I think that well, I think that music in a lot of ways, connects to both of those. Like a good artist when they are more real and genuine with their work, and it allows people to kind of put themselves in that place empathetically, like we were talking about.
Hmm.
It allows you to it allows you as the artist more intention on if you want to have them project or if you want to have them reflect. And I think the best artists can, get you to like project yourself and, feel good about it and then have that turn with the next song, just kind of the way the album is structured and just bring it right back down into the opposite. So you kind of have that drop with maybe the story of the album if you're looking at it structured that way.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. I just feel like in the end, it gives you kind of gives you back control of your narrative or even your structure, your album, your whole narrative of what you're presenting. So, and if it's done sincerely and people can feel it, like it just comes off so genuine.
Yeah.
And like we've all heard random songs, and it's like, who is this? This just sounds. I don't know if it sounds good, but it just sounds so real. Like who's this person singing? They're singing their heart out. Like I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
this. Who is this? You know what I mean? And some stuff like, oh yeah, she can sing. Like yeah, I'm not feeling it, but I can hear her. I know she can sing. I can hear that. I'm not feeling the song. Some people are like, who is this right now? So that definitely shows through.
So you had taken like a 6 year break from music. Was there anything specific that I guess you were focusing on, message wise when you were taking that time off, or was it just something that you needed to get away from?
Yeah, just like a mental break at the time. And I was still making music. I just didn't really put out any official projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still making music, still recording tracks, featured on a couple of buddies' tracks and stuff like that. But it was just a mental break. I'd been doing it for almost 10 years at that point. Focus on like a career because after it got to the point where it's like, all right, music is it's kind of stagnating in a sense where it's not taking off. You're not getting rich off this. You're not doing this,
Right.
but you still want to do it. So now it's more looking what the broad scope of life is, and then how can I incorporate it all back together?
So I guess let me ask you, what was the main difference between the music that you put out for people and the music that you keep personal for yourself?
Um, I put out a lot of music for people. So as far as like things I keep to myself, there's not much when it comes to content that I would keep to myself just for the sake of content.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I'm not worried about. Like in 09, um, I put out a track uh, about my father's passing, and it's crazy because I recorded the track 2 days after he passed
Oh wow.
because I felt like I was like I wrote the track the night before he passed for some crazy reason. And then he passed the next day, and then I'm looking at these lyrics. I'm like, yo, this shit's bugging me out. Like, this is why I wrote exactly what I wrote. So then the day after, I was like, I want to record this. So I went in, went to my boy's booth, and I was just one take, did the whole track, and I was like, I want to get it with all the emotions. I don't want to cut for hooks. Just let it run. We're gonna do this.
Yeah.
Um, so like that, and that was off my first actual album. So really, since that point, there's nothing that I would worry about saving for myself. There are some things that like experimental things that I do. beat wise, instruments that I'm like, man, am I ready to even put this out? Am I ready to even make that turn as an artist? I feel every artist should go through that if they haven't. Do something where you're like, man, should I even do this? Is this going to be accepted?
Yeah.
From people who listen to me? Is this new stuff going to be accepted? Like, I feel every artist should be able to go through that point, do something that they don't even know will be accepted from the core fans that like what they do. Like, that's when you really start breaking out.
Yeah, well, that was very powerful. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Yeah, no problem, man.
So, I guess when it comes to like the more experimental stuff, what sort of instruments do you like to incorporate that wouldn't, necessarily they would have necessarily featured in the past?
So lately, I just been really getting deep into my synths.
Oh yeah, okay. So you go
You know
analog.
what I mean?
So you go analog, or you like hooking up
Yeah.
your keyboard directly to Ableton.
I'm hooking up the keyboard to Ableton right
Oh
now.
yeah.
Then I got a couple plugins, I got two different keyboards, a couple plugins, and I got an app on the MIDI for the for a nice synth. But that's it's just that for me that's different, because I'm used
Yeah.
to I'm a good quality, how should I say, a good old school hip hop sound is what a good catalog of my music sounds like. So now, and within the last year, I've recently gotten back to making beats and producing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, jump a year ago to now, I'm like, yo, I'm trying to get on these synths and play music and no samples and do all these other stuff. So that's kind of why I released that instrumental tape, the Corn tape.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a turning point for me because I've never released an instrumental album or a beat tape in 20 years. I've been doing this for a long time and never released any of that. Got 10 other albums and mixtapes, but never just the instrumentals and stuff. So that was one of those for me. Like, man, are people gonna accept this? Like, are these beats just good because I made them and I'm not a producer like that? So, it's, even though I've been around it, you always run through this in your mind, and then, but even just putting it out, I'm like, man, are people gonna accept a beat tape from me when all I've given them was rap? So are they gonna download this or pay for it and be like, oh, you weren't rapping? I thought you were rapping. Like, be disappointed it's only music. So
Yeah.
So doing that was a nice way to help me turn the corner. Like, all right, let's start stepping back outside the box even more. Keep testing the waters.
Well, every artist has to grow and incorporate new things, and primarily if you're, you're going for like a synthier sound, like you can get so much more structured with it if you're on
Yeah.
keyboards. You just looking at those different layers, looking at those different loops. Like you can get so much more in depth if you're doing it yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I believe I've been quarantined up. I've been watching a lot of Mike Dean, IG
Okay.
Live. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just trying to follow the greats. You gotta study the greats. So I've been doing a lot of that.
Now, so what got you more into making this synth music? I mean, did you kind of take a deep dive back to like synth stuff in the '80s, or was it more modern music that got you into it?
Um, I would say two of my homies, Topher Grey and Surfboard C. They they've been on the synth game for a little bit longer. So I've always been. We put out an album last year, Electric Neon Weed Test, and we talked about it when we made that album. We kind of like had to backtrack. We had, us three went out to Vegas last year, spent the weekend together in a hotel room, and worked on music, and that's all we did. We worked on music for the weekend. We went to see a art exhibit, and then we came back to the hotel and worked on music for the whole weekend. And it
Wow,
resulted in an album that we released.
that has got to
And
be the most productive Las Vegas trip I've ever heard.
it's insane, man. I'm telling, like, I've never been so drained from a vacation. I was on the flight, I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm mentally drained. I'm physically exhausted. Uh, and I'll send you the link. You got to check out the album. It's basically we go through. It's a test um, on the effects of different strains of marijuana. That's kind of what we are going into this weekend. Like, let's bond as some brothers,
Yeah.
make some art. Let's feel what different strains do to us. So each song title is named after the strain that we smoked before we made that song.
Okay. That's
And
interesting. I
then
like that. That makes people feel like they could be in the moment too, because then they can smoke that same strain at the same time they're
exactly,
listening.
yeah, and it's all in order from the first song we made to the last song. Like it's actually in the order that we made the songs there. So it's real. So like for me, when you talk about self reflection, I listen to that whole album and it puts me in a weekend space that I'm remembering all the little subtle details of
Yeah.
how we recorded and when we went to get the chicken and when we ate the burrito. Like I'm thinking of like I'm back in that weekend. And me and my buddies always talk about it. It reverts us right back to that weekend. Like, oh, you remember that? Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely just to bring it back to that self reflection that definitely plays into it.
Yeah, I love music that does that. It just anchors you to one specific memory or, one specific time in
Hmm.
your life that, it really just, I don't know. I feel like with music like that, no matter how shitty of a mood you get in, no matter how fearful you might get from the chaotic environments that we live, you just put on music like that and it just sinks you down and anchors you to that one happy memory.
Yep, kind of grounds you back into what you need at the moment.
Absolutely, and what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely one for me, man. It's always a good time to listen to that and vibe out and just remember all the little fun tidbits and stuff that happened during the weekend. Exhausting weekend. Making the album in a couple of days is pretty exhausting.
So I guess let me ask you. I mean, your career, you've been doing this for decades at this point. Is there certain periods of your career that you've liked more than others, or is certain periods that have taught you certain lessons that you've taken going forward?
Yeah, early on, early on, when we first started recording, we had a lot of shows, so it really and we were like I said, we were performing with a live band. We were performing in the city, in a couple colleges. So we had a lot of shows. So that really showed me like at least what stage life was about, what the presence of being on stage, how to project this, how to project who you are to
Yeah,
people that may not know who you are. Um, and that's a big one because a lot of people put out music, but they never perform, right? So they just don't know how to feel on stage, who they should be on stage. Like they're not comfortable with their stage self. Or you got a lot of people. You got the opposite who are putting out, or I'm sorry, who are performing at every open mic, but they never put out any music. So all they know how to do is perform. So getting that healthy balance of knowing how to hit a stage young, that definitely paid off because like I feel comfortable on stage.
yeah.
It's just somewhere like, and I always say if I'm not getting a couple butterflies before I go right on stage, something's not right. And I always do because it's like, oh yeah, it's those exciting, like not the nerves, it's the exciting nerves, like oh yeah, they're about to do this again. That's right, let's go. Uh, that 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 always happens. But I think right now is probably like my favorite time in music in my career in my musical career. Right now is my favorite time, to be honest with you. Um, I think I'm putting out some of my best stuff, my best music. I'm enjoying it. I'm making a lot of stuff. So I'm more hands on with my music now than I've been probably at any point in my past. Um, which gives me more of a self satisfaction of my own music, and it's got my fingerprints all over it. So yeah, right now is a great time. The last couple years.
Well, yeah, and like I don't know. I guess it has a lot to do with the environment that we're in now. Like I always feel that what's the old Stoic quote? Peaceful times breed weak men, but chaotic times bring strong men. And I feel like that's the way it is with artists as well. Like the last few years, we've been in an environment that's been very fearful, chaotic. A lot of people are. I don't know. I just feel like collectively, as a society, we have a lot of angst and anger, and we don't know where to put it. And a lot of that confusion, it can lead to some of the best art being produced. It can lead to some of the most inspirational messages as well because we're faced with it day to day and there's no looking away from it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a time where creators strive, and it's not hyperbole to say remember the Renaissance, remember certain times in history where people went through a really rough time, and remember what came out of it after that.
Oh yeah.
But it's also a time for like artists to remember their own health and don't feel like you have to do something because everything else shut down. you might have been doing something for the past 3 months, and this might be your way of, your life telling you, hey, just chill. Like, I know you have all the time in the world, but use it to just relax. And I've told that to some of my artist friends too, who you can see are like, pushing to write a song or just not fully engaged. It's like, no, they don't even. There's no force to it.
Yeah.
We're on our own timeline. We're not signed to these major labels. No one's pushing deadline dates on us. We're on our own timeline. So, do everything in accordance with what feels best with you.
Well, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like people a lot of times just feel like they let themselves down. When they're not as being
Yeah,
as productive as they should be, or they're not being as on the ball as they'd like to be, or not making as much progress in whatever their project is as they'd like to be. But it's hard to know when to call it quits. Well, and take a break. It's hard to know when to actually engage in that self care.
yeah, it really is. You have to be fine tuned with with yourself and what's going on around you. Um, and then there are going to be times when you should push yourself. Not every time when you feel I don't want to do it. I got to back off. Like so you have to really really in tune with yourself. Like no, I need to push myself right now. And then I know also when I can just like what, just I'm really let me back off. Give me an hour. Give me a couple of days. I'll come back at this tomorrow even. We'll just get a good let my ears breathe from everything for a while. Let me come back with a clean head. I'll
Yeah.
attack it. And I know that's how I work specifically. Like if I'm really not into something, I'll just step away for a second. I'll turn it off. I'll just all right, I'm not gonna make any music today. I started it really. I wasn't feeling any of it. I'll turn it off and come back tomorrow. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why I needed that energy. I needed to just calm down for a second.
Well, then I mean, I don't know. Whenever something you love seems like it's a chore in the moment, that's when it's time to take a step back
For
because you're
sure.
you're not putting the attention that you want into it. Because I mean, music is it's almost like its own rate of vibration. You know what I mean? Like the intention that you put into something when you are making it is going to have a ripple effect for folks that are listening to it.
Right. Yeah. They'll definitely, they'll definitely feel that. They'll definitely hear that. The same way as if some singers up there belting her heart out, and I'm like, yo, this is touching my soul. Who is this? She's giving me those same vibrations through her voice that you hear, whether it's through a instrument, a beat, or this or that. It's all the same feeling that vibrations that turn into feelings.
Yeah. So I guess what sort of mindset or feelings have you been experiencing while you've been in isolation? I mean, making that shift into the instrumental, you had to have been able to get a lot off your chest.
Yeah. So isolation has been it's been different for me. I mean, I'm still working. Um, so like my wife's working from home, but I'm still going to work. Um, so it's I see everyone around me change drastically, and I'm like, man, it hasn't changed that much for me in
Yeah,
that sense. Like my day to day is almost still the same. I just find myself being almost using other people's free time to like, oh yeah, you got time, like let's go. Because I'm always like trying to find people. It's always hard to get people's time. It's one of the most. I always say time is our most valuable commodity. Because basically, if you can give someone your time, I would take your time over your money. Like time means something on a whole nother level when you really get down to it. You can't make more time. You can always make more money.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Well, that's kind of
so
the stoic mindset as well, right? That death is the great motivator because we have to
yeah,
always grasp with the concept that what the time that we have here is limited, and what are you going to leave behind? What's going to be your effort to bettering the world, or kind of reintegrating man into what it could be.
yeah. What are you going to leave behind? Right. That's always a good question to think about. Like, I wonder if people like yourself is that something you think about often, or even you're like, oh man, if when I pass, what's what's going to be my name?
Yeah.
What's it going to mean in this world once I go? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm of an existential mind. I actually engage in an old German existential meditation where philosophers would keep a skull on their desk just to have a constant reminder that they are going to die. So I keep a
Right.
skull on my desk. So whenever I'm feeling frustrated, whether it's editing video or painting, even writing. Whenever I start to get that mental block, it's good to take a break. But like you were saying, right? But instead of taking a break to go cool down or whatever it is, I often will like take a step back and just kind of look at it, let my mind wander a little bit, and
Yeah,
your mind can take you to some great revelations when you're in a moment of distress or frustration in the moment.
yeah, definitely, man. Your mind is powerful. Yeah, I mean, your mind is. It goes without saying. Your mind's extremely powerful. You control a lot, within you. So if you allow it, I'm sure it, especially in those moments um, when you're searching. What I'm saying, when you're searching within your mind for something, it could take you to some pretty good places.
And I feel like, well, I mean, the mind's powerful because if the mind wasn't powerful, they wouldn't try so hard to dull down our minds on a day to day basis. I always feel,
Exactly.
I always feel like, I don't know, music, art, it's always in a constant struggle with the, conformity of the time or the consumer or the consumption of the time. You look at like visual art being compared to like corporate brands or underground music being compared to, corporately pushed, watered down, written by
Right.
wow, what are the, well, who was that Beyonce song that was written more or less by
Oh,
a
by 20, 25 different people, and
yeah, yeah, it was
I think it was just yeah, I think it was just Girls Run the World. Was that the one?
I think so. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
basically it was just put together by a test audience. Like, no, what would you like more?
yeah,
No, no, the major keys, please.
yeah.
That's happier.
Right, right. Exactly.
And I don't know. I feel like it's a struggle between individual expression and conformity in that way.
Yeah, that's what music is right now. But like that's a beauty. I really, man, I always tell people if you do something, put it out. If you want to do a podcast, just do it
Yeah,
because we're in an age where we can. It's that simple. We can. You know you can do a podcast. It's this. How easy was it to reach out? You know, you and I, we've never met. We reached out, set it up, boom, there we go.
yeah.
It's like it's so easy to get things done, and so people put roadblocks in front of themselves that they can't overcome, and that always boggles my mind. And I know everyone does it, and I know I'm guilty of it too. So I try to be cognizant of those things, but don't let your own roadblock stop you. That's just ridiculous.
Oh, I feel like so many people are just so self defeating a lot of the time because well, I was talking with a guest I had the other week, and one of the things that he had said, and the guy's name's Greg Kaminsky. He does a podcast on like esoteric ideas, philosophy, stuff like that, and he said something along the lines of never underestimate people's desire to be miserable because people define themselves by their self doubt. People learn to define themselves by their inability to do things because,
Hmm.
it just reinforces that victim role.
Right, right. And it's an easy role to play in this society.
Yo, yeah, yeah. It's definitely an easy role to play in a predatory society.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a common role, it's an easy role. So, but yeah, those self-inflicting injuries, people people got to avoid those. Probably totally off topic, but it's a good advice. People got to avoid self-inflicting injuries.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess also, music is one of those things that like it can break those mindsets. Like you find the right piece of music, the right song, the right artist to inspire you that can be a better version of yourself. No
Hmm.
matter who that is, that music, sets you free mentally. Kind of ends that that mental slavery that you have where society's convinced you that you're not good enough to do something.
Yeah, there's something when it comes music wise. There's something out there for every single person. It doesn't matter what your taste is, what you like, what you don't like. If you search, there's something out there for you. People are making because there's someone like you before. I keep going to before there was someone like you, but they didn't have the space or the opportunity to put that sound out there. Now there's people like you everywhere that are making what you want to hear. Just you have to go search and look for it.
Yeah, it's basically taking the power out of the hands of these corporations and put it into your
Hmm.
hands. Now, I mean, granted, there are still some gatekeepers like Spotify could choose to rip your stuff down if they want to, but it's that's a whole freedom of speech thing that we
Yeah,
won't even get
yeah,
into.
but like Bandcamp is a pretty good. So I've been on Bandcamp
Yeah, Bandcamp's
since the
great.
last 12, 15 years, or yeah, at least 12, 15 years now. That's where my stuff has been first and foremost. So I'm all behind Bandcamp. If you want to look for real, I mean, Spotify's algorithms are amazing when it comes to finding new artists and plugging you new artists. But if you really want to go on your own deep dive search, like get on Bandcamp and like figure the world out.
Yeah, Bandcamp's like the OG of of publishing your
Yeah.
own music. Like it's been around since the days of MySpace,
Yeah, man, Bandcamp has been my buddy for a very long time.
And I don't know, there's just something about those websites that just kind of offer that like hands off approach, though, too. Where like you have to put in the effort and go looking and, click at what tracks people have liked,
Hmm.
who are they following? Because, even if you're looking at it, you find an artist that you enjoy, you look at some of the stuff that they're listening to, it gives you a greater insight on their music as well.
100%. Yeah, yeah. That's the beauty of something like a site like Bandcamp. You really get to take those deep dives, um, and then you can get the merch. You can get things that are coming directly from the artist, and then once you understand their revenue sharing and things like that, you understand how the artist is getting the majority of their of whatever the payment is, as opposed to you look at Spotify streams and everything. It's like it's it's the app and the website for the artist. Like I know a lot of people push their Bandcamp because they're like, yeah, it's on Spotify. I'm gonna get my streams, but buy my albums on Bandcamp. That's how you're really helping me. Or buy my merch through this Bandcamp because that's how you're really helping me. So
So I guess going forward, what sort of influences or directions would you like to take your music?
um, I don't have I don't even feel like I have an exact direction. I'm just kind of making like right now. I'm just making a lot of songs. That's really all I've been doing the past couple of weeks. Like I put out the instrumental album, but in between that, I've just been making solo songs left and right, um, and expressing myself. So I might just release some singles and let that run for a couple weeks. So I'm just building up a nice collection of songs, and I don't. I'm working on a couple other projects. I'm actually working on a project with other friends
Hmm.
um, that we're hoping to get wrapped up pretty soon and get out. So I got a couple of projects, and then with my own music, I think I might just make a couple singles, let them run, and just keep being in the moment. That's really my focus. And if I have to say, that's what I want to do. I want to keep being in the moment.
Then that's what you got to do. Well, and that we all
Yeah,
should like seek to be more in the moment because I mean,
yeah,
all types of meditation they want you to be more in tune with what's going on in the present moment because the more in tune you are with what's surrounding you and what's influencing you, the more you can be at peace with those or be I wouldn't say yeah you'd be more at peace and content with the influences that surround you, and I think through that you gain a greater appreciation of them.
yeah. You have a better understanding of them.
Yeah.
You look at them through a different lens. And something I always try to do, no matter who I encounter or the situation, whether I'm 100% with you or 100% against you, I still want to understand why you did what you did, so that or I can understand your mindset and see where you came from. Whether I think it's evil or I think it's the most amazing thing, I'm still trying to understand, like, why'd you do this? And what was the mindset that put you? I don't want to just brush it off. Oh, people are crazy. They do this. Like, no, what led this person to this, or like what made them do this? So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so
Well,
yeah, I
everybody's
think
got
just getting
yeah, everybody's
getting that
got
healthy understanding
motivation,
of it.
man.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody's got specific motivations that everyone's got motivations that inspire their behaviors, and it's usually that connection between thoughts and feelings that's where that gets muddied. People don't understand a lot of the times that certain thoughts that they're having, they will make there's a direct emotional connection, which is a direct action behaviorally, right? And
Right.
a lot of people, when they're not in the moment or they're not paying attention to their own, perspective, they don't see how those things are connected. And if you don't have the ability to control your behaviors, then you really don't have
Right.
any sort of self mastery or self reflection whatsoever.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I practice that a lot. Self reflection, self mastery. Just and that's why I say, and it's not a egotistical or a narcissistic way when I always say like I have to always look out and do what's best for me. And I say that because I truly feel if I'm doing what's best for me, by knowing me, I'm looking out for everyone else already.
Right.
You know what I mean? What I do is best for me is not just gonna be best for me. That's why I feel comfortable in making maybe a major decision because I'm not gonna be this greedy like, well, it was best for me. I didn't mean that as only me because when I say that I'm looking as a big group of who is it best for. So
Right, right. You're trying to do what's best for you to inevitably create the most good around you.
yeah, I remember in philosophy classes in college, Kant and Utila. I always get this. Was it utilitarianism?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
basically
yeah.
the greater good.
Yeah, by Immanuel
Always
Kant.
working towards the greater good. Yeah, by manual. I always took to that because it made sense to me. It was the most. It was the way to get the most out of your life while also trying to care for everyone at the same time. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because, well, I mean, I don't know, you just have to kind of in tune yourself with that sense of justice, though, too. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
at that point, you're removing your desire, right, from the situation, and you're focusing on your need, because what you desire in a moment isn't necessarily what you need for, positive growth or to, really
Right.
elevate yourself as an individual.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm also a firm believer that you can't really be 100% into anything because that's just like then you're locking yourself in for a room with no growth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a situational. It basically becomes situational, where you basically start understanding the whole layout of everything that's going on, and you have to choose when you institute certain philosophies or what works best in certain situations. Like, if you're getting beat up at work all the time over something, you're like, all right, I'm not going to stay here just because if I left, everyone else's job wouldn't be harder. Like, no, like, all right, I have to quit. Like, this job's not worth it for me. I
Hmm.
really have to get out of here and better myself. I can't worry about the five other guys that are like, oh, you quit on us. Like, yeah, man, like I have to quit, man. In those certain circumstances, it's very situational because people have to know when to like look out for themselves, and also it's also when to like just look out for everyone else. It's like a weird seesaw to be on.
Well, I mean, it's also, a matter of self respect, too. Like, you have to
True.
respect yourself enough to know when you're being exploited or taking advantage of or when it's becoming
Self worth.
detrimental. Yeah, yeah.
People don't really have enough self worth or understand their self worth, or have been around enough to understand how different things can be in different circumstances. Like it doesn't have to be like this. I've seen it differently, so why is it like this now? Like no, it could be better. I've seen it better, things like that. So
Well, I think that that's another trap that people fall into is that we tend to look at things as absolutes, right? And in reality, it's never a black and white issue. There's always a world of gray in between. That's
mm-hmm,
where you're gonna find the meat of the substance. There's always gonna
hundred
be a
percent.
little truth in every side to everything, and it's up to us to learn as much as we can to differentiate it for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. It's like, just like you said, there's always going to be that gray, and there's always going to be that ambiguity that you have to kind of figure out yourself and use your own mindset and kind of figure out what's going on in every situation.
So I guess, let me ask you. I guess inspiring that sense of self worth or self respect. How has that been a message that you've tried to incorporate in your music?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. That's pretty prevalent in my lyrics and my words. Um, I, it's not, I won't say advice. It's just like the conversation we just had together. Like that can be a whole thought process while I'm rapping. So now I'm just talking about that.
Right.
So now I'm giving out my mindset about philosophies or something like that. Um, so I just try to convey a positive message and a very but more so like a realistic message, because everything can't be positive, but clearly everything can't be negative. There's got to be some fine balance, and that's reality. Like reality is the balance of this. Everything's great or everything's bad.
Right.
Like, nah, it's both, and we're here living in it. So I'm gonna give it to you.
Yeah, I like to think of reality being in what is in my power to control, because there's certain aspects of life, reality,
Hmm.
society that you just don't have control over, and you're never going to, but you need to
Right.
refocus on what you do have the ability to control and what you can effectively use that control for. And I mean, it's a lot more of a message of responsibility, but it's through that individual responsibility that you gain that self-worth. Succeed or fail, like, you gain something very
Hmm.
positive from both of those.
Yeah, for sure. And you hit it like your reality. I've come to a position in life where I'm clearly understand that there's so many realities, and it sounds like common sense, but I know plenty of people that couldn't even think of someone else's reality when trying to understand why they did what they did or
Yeah.
anything like that. So I really try to like, man, what's your reality? And there's people have their own realities. There's that's the truth to the matter. Like I can't tell you what your reality is. I just know what mine is, and I'm seeing how I feel yours is, but there's no there's no saying like directly, because you can argue that all day long. People that's why, I mean, you can set someone on a lie detector test and they've convinced themselves they didn't do something.
Yeah.
Well, they passed the test. That's their reality. They didn't do it. They convinced themselves of that
Yeah.
in their mind. Like you can't tell them differently. So
Yeah, and I feel like that is the danger of the era that we're in now, is because political figures in particular are starting to take advantage of that. The fact that we do all live in our own realities, and the fact that we will justify anything to make ourselves feel right or superior to another person.
yeah, you're just playing to the ego of everybody, uh, and like you said, and people are willing to justify whatever they need to make their reality right in their own mind. Like, I got to justify my actions somehow. So how can I do this?
Yeah. Well, and it's not even like justifying actions. People want to justify their biases. People want to justify negative aspects of themselves, and just to sink themselves into their stubbornness a little bit more and refuse growth.
Yeah, it's a very awakening time. And I just say that because I always say, tell me who you really are. Give me, what I'm saying, 'cause I want to make the decision whether or not I rock with you.
Yeah.
I want to make the decision whether or not we go on. So like, if you're a hater about this, that whatever, if you have a bias, if you're racist, tell me everything about you up front. So I don't have any surprises down the line. Let me make that decision. So I always take it in now, like, with the president, and we got people coming out of woodworks and proclaiming how they feel. It's like, yeah, cool. I like it. Show me who you really are. I've been waiting to see this because I know I know you've been out there.
Yeah.
So show me who you really are now. I'm glad that you're comfortable showing who you really are, because it's not really a surprise to me. But now I'm glad to see that you're, embrace that. So then, because that's how we really that's the only way to move forward once both sides are out in the open.
I completely agree with you, and that's the one positive thing about Trump's presidency, is that he has exposed what our government really is. Uh,
I say it over again, man. You hit the nail on the head.
just even to the point that he was willing to sell our troops out as hired guns to the Saudis. I mean, it's just, everything's so blatant now. The corruption's just so blatant that there's no denying it. There's no
Everything down
denying
the
it.
line, and time is day, whatever it is. It's May this, and no Republican big senators are still speaking. No one's speaking out against them. So now it's just like, oh, you guys are all complicit, and
Yep.
it's something that I'm sure, talking to you now, I'm like, oh, you've known this, I know this, but yeah, show me, please. Show me in plain sight, so everyone can see. All you guys hiding, come out with all your flags and show everybody, so everybody can see. Like, let's not play the game like this is 50 years ago and we've changed and we've gotten past a lot. Like, let's not play that game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the biggest myths is that, and a lot of it's just the media pushing a
Mhm.
narrative, oh no, everything's better, we had Obama, so, racism ended. How many
Right.
different articles posted that right after his election, and what, a couple weeks, 3 weeks later, you had the Tea Party movement coming out with nooses and Confederate flags. I mean, I feel like we are breaking away from the narrative that we've been spoon fed by these, oligarch types that, America is this great place. And, we're seeing it for ourselves. And that firsthand experience is going to be more prevalent than any mythology they try and feed us.
100%. I mean, you people don't just forget what they lived through, what they saw. It just doesn't happen that way. You know what I mean? Like we all know what we're living through. We all know what we saw. We all know how people are reacting. These are things that we've lived through. These are our own experiences. So unless you can come and take my memories away, I mean, I'm this is going to be my ideology going forward. This is going to be paved the way I'm thinking going forward.
Yeah. And I guess I'll ask you then, because coming from a completely different world perspective than me, I want to ask you, what do you think we can do just in society to bridge that gap and try and I don't create that healing process? I mean, I know you said authenticity is definitely the first step, but where do you think we should go after that? And how do you think music plays a role in that?
Um, I think like I said, first and foremost, people have to really just be flat out with who they are. Um, and I I don't know because I think it's gonna get uglier than before it gets better.
Oh yeah,
So it's not like we're at the peak of this thing. It's gonna get uglier. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, I can see this dude winning another 4 years. So that's partially what the reality is. Like, I talk to people and they're like, "No, you're crazy," and I'm like, "Are you even looking at what's happening?
yeah,
Like, he's not gone yet. So, and no one said anything about him. So why wouldn't I think that everyone's gonna keep like no one's running against him for president in the Republican Party. They're not competing against him. So that's it. They're just vowing to vote for him again. Like, oh yeah, this is gonna happen again. Like, be ready. So it's that reality. As far as music, I try to use music as just my escape. Um, so it's come into play lyrically because it's just who I am. So it's gonna fall into play. But lately, I've just like that's. I think that's why I kind of got into the synths
hmm
because I can just kinda close my eyes and just play away and layer and throw some drums and just layer and just keep playing and create a sound that like really vibes me out and I get to kind of meditate in a sense, just listening and sit back and just enjoy it.
yeah.
Um, and it's like my calm. So I've been using music and that's why I think I got into synths. It's like helping just be my calm, where I get to just play and create and then sit back and just listen and know, oh, I played everything that's on me. Get to enjoy that whole moment.
And I don't know, as far as like music goes in that regard, the one thing I do think that music does a good job of is, I mean, you look at your average conservative voter. I feel like, the reason why they have these preconceived notions and sometimes biases, and the left does as well, I'm in the exact same fashion, is that there's not enough firsthand experience between the two. Like, you have like a rural voter that's isolated. They've never had the opportunity to go to the city and meet all these different peoples from all these different cultures and all these different perspectives. Then, they're just going to remain in that stagnant mindset. But what music has the ability to do is, show these different ideas, these different ways of life, these different perspectives, and it gives those folks that might not have the ability to ever have that firsthand experience a medium and an avenue to kind of interact with these ideas and still use that as a way to grow.
Yeah, music can definitely be that universal language to reach out across where that may be the only option. Um, I feel it's tough because it's such a systemic problem,
Yeah,
and music has been around since the dawn of time, and this is a systemic problem that's been built. So it's not an organic issue.
Right.
So until that's broken down, um, it'll just kind of it'll help soothe things over, because music helps people get through times. People are listening to music, I'm sure, now more than ever, because they're just at home all day long. They're not 8 hours at work where they can't do this or can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Music is going to help people mentally get through these times, and I hope that's what happens, or I hope that's what music does the most, is help people get through this mentally. Because I feel like in the next 6 months to a year, like, there's going to be a big surge in mental health, and the mental health crisis is going to grow.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's going through this trauma and being locked in home, and dealing with deaths that they can't they can't close that door around. They can't see people. All that pushed together. Like, I had a friend of mine who just went to deliver her baby last week, and she tested positive for COVID.
Oh, wow.
And so she had the baby, and they immediately separated. So she can't even see her new baby for 2 weeks. She hasn't seen her yet. So, like, things like that are going to cause issues down the line. And not to say she's going to have it. She's a strong woman, but I know those are issues. Someone losing a family member, you can't have a funeral. That's it. The body's gone. Sorry, you can't do what you normally do to close that chapter.
Yeah.
I hope music helps people get through a lot of the tough times they're dealing with now. I hope they find. That's why I say, Bandcamp, Spotify playlist. Go and look for music. Don't just let it, sit there and hopefully fall in your lap. There's something for you. There's something for what you're feeling. There's something for what you're thinking. There's something for what you're saying. Go find it. Go find the music out there.
And that's great advice. And we are getting to the end of the podcast, so I guess I'll just leave off with this question for you, Iowa. Through all your experience, all the different music that you've made, what message would you like to give others to inspire people?
To inspire people, do what you really feel is best to do for you. Like, people take that leap. It's like, it's hyperbole. It's always said, but really, if you feel like you should do it, at least try it. Go ahead. It's okay. It's your life. It's that simple. It's your life, and you're the only one who has to own up to what you've done in this life. That's it. That's kind of my philosophy. I always say it to my family members. They look at me like, "You're crazy, man." I'm like, it's real. But like I said earlier, like, I say that not in a narcissistic way, because I'm also looking at everyone else and hoping that I'm doing what's best for everyone. So when I say that, it's on a broader spectrum, but yeah, in music, it's your life. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go well, do it again. Do something different. Like, don't be scared. Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think that's an important message, is that, because it reinforces the idea that you have the power to find purpose through art. Whether if you've never played an instrument before, never picked up a paintbrush, never done anything creative, it's never too late to find that voice and to find that sense of accomplishment that you can only get by, genuinely expressing yourself.
Yeah. I would, just create. Feel the feeling after you create something, and that feeling is pretty powerful. I mean, whatever it may be. People have kids and they create something. That feeling is powerful. So it goes the same with music. It goes the same with art. It goes the same with painting. It goes the same for chefs making this dish. Create something that's yours.
Yeah.
And you'll feel that power, and you'll feel how you now control who you are. And that's something that, if you run with that, you'll be good.
Man, that is a great place to leave off at. Creating so you can have control over who you are. I love it.
Yeah.
So this has been Iowa Rockwell, and you can catch him with Topher Grey on their podcast, Stupid Box Podcast. Is that available on all platforms? Is there one specific platform you guys are pushing for that one?
No, Stupid Box Podcast. We're at Instagram at the same handle, Stupid Box Podcast. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, or iTunes, Apple Podcasts. So yeah, we're out there. Catch me at Iowa Rockwell. Basically all the social media handles. IowaRockwell.bandcamp.com. Yeah, we're out here, man. Appreciate this, Jimmy.
Yeah, man, it was great talking to you. And, folks, he just had those two new projects released. That was both the Quarantape, which is that instrumental album, as well as Stay Safe with Nether Friends. So, if you are at Spotify, Bandcamp, and you're listening right now, you might as well just pull up a browser, go right to it, and give it a listen. And I would personally recommend sitting down with a glass of Hennessy, glass of whiskey, blunt of your choice.
When it's all over, we'll share a glass of bourbon, you know what I'm saying, and sit back.
Oh yeah, because honestly, like I sat when I was at work and just listened to that entire album, front to cover or cover to back, and I would recommend you guys all listen to it in one sitting because as an album itself, I mean, it's just such a consistent and unified piece of work.
Appreciate that, man. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, it was great talking to you, and hope to have you on again.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Let's make it happen. It was great talking to you.
Yep, good talking to you. And yeah, folks, give him a like, give him a follow, check out the albums, and we are out of here.
Yeah, man. Let's get to it. Get this shit done, man. Light a flick. Hey, that's the flame. Hey. We ain't playing. Okay. This the B-side. Just the mic level. You know better than the B-side. Oh, there we go. Put me in my zone, slow. Hey, yo, waking and baking, making the bacon. Did I make enough? Heat from the oven. Call up my cousin, is an eighth enough. Got the weed, all you need is to bring. I see your Vega blunts. Life is a movie without a script, can't even make it up. Deal with the winners, cause nothing better than the summertime. Doing them burpees when no one's watching, got you summer fun. Swiping on Tinder and for it and making you wonder why. Listen, don't interrupt when I'm speaking, please don't undermine. Doing whatever we gotta do, we making money moves. End of the day, I never changed, this ain't nothing new. Growing up was all about the hustle, cause I struggled to. Now when I need some motivation, listen to Run the Jewels. Never coming in second, I hit it like the running man. No stopping or slowing down until I reach 100 grand. In my bank account at all times, man, you understand? Just when you think you figured it out, I got another plan. Like we both driving, but watch me switching to another lane. On the layover, so now I'm switching to another plane. Final destination, I'm praying my life won't be in vain. Legacy intact, the facts will always take a walk on the wild side. West side to the south side, where they get high just to get by. Walking on the wild side, north side to the east side. The best songs on the B-side. Walking on the wild side, west side to the south side, where they get high just to get by. Walking on the wild side, north side to the east side. The best songs on the B-side. We all die eventually. The real tragedies forgetting to live. Keep going till there's nothing to give. Fuck with the kid, hungry like I just did a bid. Adjusting the pitch, hit you like a punch to the rib. Rapping circles round your favorite. Smoking purple with your main chick. Speaking binary codes like the Matrix. Face it, without a trace, I'll be in the night sky. Roll another Dutch, feeling the rush, now it's flight time. Everybody fighting for a piece of the shine, but there's enough to go around, so many pieces of pie. Whatever flavor you like, step up, take it, and keep it moving. Blues cruising down Lake Michigan, man, we cool and acting a fool. Now that school's out, we bring the tools out. Pen and paper, hi-hat, bass, panning and zoom out. The camera always follows the superstar. Just play your role, and when the time's right, just take a walk on the wild side. West side to the south side, where they getting high just to get by. Walking on the wild side, north side to the east side. The best songs on the B-side. Walking on the wild side, west side to the south side, where they get high just to get by. Walking on the wild side, north side to the east side. The best songs on the B-side.